We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Tesam at Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 39a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says that when the Mishnah talks about kvashin, which is pickled vegetables, if they come from an Oved Kochavim, so we say that they are prohibited to eat because there's a concern that the Oved Kochavim might have put wine into those pickled vegetables when he was pickling the vegetables in the brine. And Rabbi Yochanan says that it's mutter b'hana, and not only is it mutter b'hana in a regular case, but even in a situation where you know the Oved Kochavim put in wine, it's going to be mutter b'hana. You can get benefit. You're not allowed to eat it, but you are allowed to get benefit. And the Gemara asks on Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yochanan, why does Rabbi Meir specifically say by Morius that we're stricter? By Morius, which is a kind of a fish stew, so there Rabbi Meir says that it is going to be asr b'hana. So why, again, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is the chvashim, why is that going to be more lenient than the case of the Morius? And the Gemara answers, Hasam over there, Yediyam Amosho, there the substance is known, Hacha lo Yediyam Amoshon, but over here the substance is not known. And Rashi explains, Hasam Yediyam Amosh, over there the substance is known. It means as follows. This is talking about by the Morius, Share Matzvilan bo, they would actually dip into it. V'harot of nechol, and therefore that the moist part would be eaten. V'hayayin necholimo, you're eating the wine together with it. And so therefore Rabbi Meir is strict over there and says that it's asr b'hana as well, you cannot get benefit. But over here, lo yediyam amoshan, over here by the kvashim, over here by the pickled vegetables, so you're not going to know the substance, meaning she'in ochlan harotiv, you don't eat the brine in the case of the pickled vegetables, ela hayerik, you just have the vegetable. You're only putting the yerek in there in order to preserve it. It's a way of preserving the yerek, and so therefore we're not as strict again when it comes to the case of the chvashim. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, V'taris trufa, minced taris, which is a kind of fish. V'tzir she'ein badaga, and if you have fish brine that does not have floating within it the kilbis fish, and chilik, all of those are prohibited. And the Gemara asks, my chilik, what is this chilik that the Mishnah mentions? The Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Abba Marav. Rav Nachman bar Abba says that Rav says, Zu sultanis. This refers to the fish that is called the sultanis. The sultanis is a kosher fish. However, the reason why it's prohibited, umipnei ma asura, why is it prohibited? Because when it's caught in the nets, it gets mixed with other fish. You can't identify which is the kosher and which is the not kosher, and that's why it is prohibited. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Ein lo achshav v'asad legad lachar zman. Let's say you have a fish that right now it doesn't have scales, but in the future it's going to have scales. Kagon hasultanis v'afitz, like the sultanis and the afitz. The sultanis is the fish that was just mentioned before. Harezem mutter, that is mutter. That's considered to be a kosher fish. Yesh lo achshav, let's say right now it does have scales. V'asad lahashir b'shasha ola min hayam, but those scales are going to be removed when the fish comes out of the sea. Kagon akunis v'apunis, kataspatius, v'achaspatius, v'utinis, these are various kinds of fish. Mutter, those are going to be mutter as well. And the Gemara continues, Achris Rabbi Avo beKesari, Rabbi Avo announced in Caesarea, Kirvei dogim, the innards of fish, v'uvran, and the eggs, nikachin mikol adam, in this particular location, they can be purchased from everyone, cheskasan, because there's a chazaka, einon boim elo, mipelusa v'aspamia. We know that these are coming from, these are places, plusa and aspamia, ki hadi amar Abaye, and it's similar to what Abaye said, Haitzachanta debav nahar sharia, the tzachanta refers to the chilik that was mentioned above. Again, the chilik is the sultanis. So the tzachanta of the river, the Bav river, is permitted. And my time, what's the reason? Now, if you're going to say it's because the water moves very quickly, and you'll say that the non-kosher fish, they can't survive in that water because they don't have the spine. They can't survive in places where it's Redife Maya, where the water current is strong, lo motzi kai, they can't survive there. But it's not true, but we see that such fish do survive there. And so maybe you'll suggest, maybe the reason is because the water is salty. The high dog tame and the non-kosher fish, kaven the less like kalfe, since they don't have scales, maybe they're not able to survive again in a place where the water is salty. But that's also not true. We see that they do survive. So rather it's because in this particular river, the silt of the river, it's not able to cultivate dag tame, it's not able to cultivate the non-kosher fish. And so the idea is that it's the same basic idea as what Rabbi Avo said. Rabbi Avo said, again, if you have the innards of fish and you have the eggs purchased in this particular location, we know where they come from, and we know essentially that they are kosher fish. And so the same thing is true when it comes to the tzachanta of the Bav River. It's the same idea that we understand that this particular area is not going to have the non-kosher fish. And Rashi explains, Kirvei dogim shumnan, the fat of the fish, again, the innards of the fish, and uvran is hein beitzim shel dogim, that refers to the eggs of the fish. And again, we know they come from miplusa v'aspamya, they come from plusa and aspamya, and the point is, v'ein dogim temeim mitzuyin sham, you don't have non-kosher fish over there. And as we also saw by the tzachanta, the chilek, the bav nahara, the bav shem nar, the bav was the name of the river. Some change Rashi that it's really bav was the name of the river. The redifi bekoach mekalchen, again, if the water, the current is strong, so maybe you'll suggest that that's the reason we know that there are no non-kosher fish. And then the Gemara said, the silt of the river, it's not going to cultivate non-kosher fish, karkois, shaloso hanor, meaning the earth of that river, ein megadel, it doesn't raise dogim tameim, non-kosher fish. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravina says, Ho'idna nowadays, the Kashavchi bein Nahar Guza and Nahar Gamda, that the river Guza and the river Gamda, they pour into the Bav River, so now it's prohibited because there are non-kosher fish in that area. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaye says, Hai Chamra Diyama, the donkey of the sea, that's a kind of fish. Shari, that is permitted, it's a kosher fish. Tura Diyama, the axe of the sea, also that refers to a certain kind of fish. Asr, that is forbidden. The Simonech and the mnemonic to remember that is as follows. Tameh Tahar, that the animal on land, the donkey is Tameh. So the Chamra Diyama, though, is Tahar. And Tahar Tameh, and on land, the Torah, the shore, the axe is kosher. But in the sea, it's Tameh, it's not kosher. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravashi says, Shafar Nuna Shari, that also is a kind of fish, that's permitted. And Kedash Nuna, the one that's called Kedash Nuna Aser, that one is forbidden. V'simonech, and the mnemonic to remember that is Kodesh La Hashem, and so the word Kodesh means to say it's holy, and therefore in this case it would mean that it is forbidden. Ika de Amri, there are those that say Kavar Nuna Aser, that the Kavar Nuna is Aser. V'simonech, and the mnemonic to remember that, again it's not talking the Kedash Nuna, but the Kavar Nuna, and the mnemonic to remember that is Kivrei Ovdei Kochavim, is the graves of Ovdei Kochavim. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Akiva ikla leginzik, Rabbi Akiva went to Ginzik, aisu lekamei, hahun nuna, they brought before him a particular fish, to have it dami lechipusha, that it was similar to the chipusha. Chafia b'dikula, when he enclosed it in a basket, chaza bekalfe, he saw that it in fact had scales, v'sharya, and he said it was permitted. The chipusha is a non-kosher fish, but when he actually inspected this one, he saw that in fact it was a kosher fish. And the Gemara continues, Ravashi ikla l'tamaduria, Ravashi went to Tamaduria, aisu l'kamei ahununa dehavidami l'tzlufcha, they brought him a fish that was similar to the tzlufcha, nakte lahadayoma, he put it in the light of the day, and chazet dehava beit simchi v'sharya, same thing, he saw that it had scales, and he said it was permitted. Ravashi ikla la'uasra, Ravashi went to a certain place, aisu l'kamei nuna dehavidami l'shafar nuna, they brought him a fish that was similar to the shvar nuna, chafye b'meshichle chivre, he enclosed it in a white vessel, chaza bekalfi, he saw the scales which were darker, v'shari, and he permitted it. And the Gemara continues, Rabba bar Barchana ikla liakra diagma, Rabba bar Barchana went to Akra diagma, krivu leit tzachanta, they brought him the tzachanta, again, that's the chiluk, the sultanis, the kosher fish mentioned above. Shamei lo gavra dehave korile bati, but he heard a particular person that referred to it as a bati, which is a non-kosher fish. Amar, he said, miduka korile bati, from the fact that he's calling it bati, shma mina davar tame yispe, it must be that it has mixed within it something not kosher. So lo achal minei, so he didn't eat from it. Letzafar, in the morning, ayin ba, he examined it, and ashkach bei, davar tame, he found something not kosher there. Kari anafshe, so he referred to himself with the following pasuk, lo yuna letzadik kalavan, that no sin befalls the righteous. And Rashi explains, Chamra diyama, Vitora diyama, the donkey of the sea, and the axe of the sea, the kaimalan Mesechet Chul, and Rashi notes that we've established in Mesechet Chul, and Kol sheyesh bayam, yesh bayabasha, all kinds of animals that exist on the dry land, they exist in the sea as well. There's a counterpart, chutz min hachulda, except for the weasel. Tameh biyabasha tar bayam, and the idea is what's not kosher in the yabasha, what's not kosher on land, is kosher bayam, is kosher in the sea. Kodesh LaHashem, the mnemonic to remember was Kodesh LaHashem, the idea being that Stam Kodesh Aser, generally what is Kodesh is forbidden, and Kedash Nuna, Shem Dogim Shabayam, the Kedash Nuna is it's a name of certain fish in the sea. Chipusha was a dog tummy. The chipusha was a non-kosher fish. Chafya b'dikula means kiso basal. He covered it with a basket. Upirches besocho. Then what happened was the fish, it started to move around within the basket. V'noshru klipin, and the scales came off. V'niru b'dafneim kaskasim dakim. You were able to see small scales on the walls of the basket. Litzlufcha dog. That's also a certain kind of fish. Lahada yoma. He put it against the light of the day. Neged hashemesh, against the sun. Tzimchi again is kaskasim dakim. It's small scales. And Rashi continues, Meshichli chivore, a white vessel, mitoch shein levanos nirin bohen kaskasim shein shechorim. Because this was a white vessel, you could see the darker, the black scales. Shamei lahu dahavik kari lahu mina. Then he heard somebody who called this particular fish bati, v'hu shem dog tami. Bati is the name of a non-kosher fish, and so therefore he understood that there might be non-kosher mixed within. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "V'hakort shel chiltis," a sliver of chiltis from Ovid Kochavim, that is prohibited. And the Gemara says, "My time, what's the reason for that?" Mishum de mefaski levisakina. The reason is because they would cut it with a knife. The Ovid Kochavim would cut it with a knife. And afagav diyamar mar, even though the master said no sentam lefgam mutter, that if the taste that's imparted is to its detriment, it is still mutter. So even if it's getting some taste from the walls of the knife, still technically one might think it should be mutter. But agav chorfei de chiltisa, since the chiltisa is a sharp food, so mechal yalei shamnunis, it actually sweetens that oil, that fat, v'havelei kenosin tam l'shvach, and therefore it becomes giving a taste that is beneficial, v'yaser, and that's why it's prohibited. And the Gemara continues, Avdi de Rabbi Levi, Havekam Izavin Chiltisa, the servant of Rabbi Levi, he was selling Chiltisa, Kinach Nafshi de Rabbi Levi, and when Rabbi Levi died, Asu Lakame de Rabbi Yochanan, they came before Rabbi Yochanan. Amrulei, they said to him, Ma'u lemizvan minei, can we still purchase from him? Meaning, can we trust this Eved that he's not getting this Chiltis from Ovdei Kochavim? Amar Lui said to them, Avdo shel chaver, if you have the servant of a chaver is a person who's a Talmud Chacham, who's trusted, Harehu kechaver, he has that same status as the chaver himself, and so therefore you can trust this Eved. And the Gemara continues, Rav Huna bar Menyume Zavin Techilta Me'anshe Devise, the Rav Amram Chasida. Rav Huna bar Menyume, he purchased Techeles from the wife of Rav Amram Chasida. Also, Lakami de Rav Yosef, he came before Rav Yosef, and Lohave Biyade, he didn't know whether this wife was trustworthy or not. Pagabe Chanan Chaita, he then met Chanan Chaita, Chanan the tailor. Amar Lei said, Yosef Anya Menole, the Yosef the poor, how would he know the answer to this question? But I had a case just like this. Zavine Techelta, Me'anshe Devese de Ravna, I bought Cheles from the wife of Ravna, Achua de Rabbi Chia bar Abba, who was the brother of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Vasoy Lekame de Rav Masna, and I came before Rav Masna, Lohave Biyade, he didn't know the answer whether we could trust it. Asoy Lekame de Rav Yehuda Mehagronya, I came before Rav Yehuda from Hagronya. Amar Li said to me, Nafalta liyad, you fell to my hand. Hachi Amar Shmuel means to say, now I'm able to answer your question for you. Hachi Amar Shmuel, this is what Shmuel says. Eishes chaver harei kechaver. The wife of a chaver is considered like a chaver, and therefore you can trust this. Tatana Rabbanan, as the rabbis taught, Eishes chaver harei kechaver. The wife of a chaver is considered like a chaver. Avdo shel chaver harei kechaver. The servant of a chaver is considered like a chaver. Chaver shemeis, if a chaver dies, Ishto uvanav uvnei beso, his wife, his children, the members of his household, hareihen bechazkasan, they keep their chazakah, being trustworthy, unless there's some reason to suspect them. V'chein chatzar, and similarly in a courtyard, shemochen bo tcheles, that they sell tcheles, hareim bechazkasan, ad shetipasul. Again, there's a chazakah that's reliable, unless you have some reason to disqualify that chazakah. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Eishes am ha'aretz shenises l'chaver, the wife of an am ha'aretz that marries a chaver. V'chein bito shel am ha'aretz, also the daughter of an am ha'aretz shenises l'chaver, who marries a chaver. V'chein avdo shel am ha'aretz, or the servant of an am ha'aretz, likewise shenimkar l'chaver, if he gets sold to a chaver. Kulan tzrichim l'kabel divrei chavrus, they all have to accept upon themselves the stringencies of being a chaver in order to be trusted as a chaver. Aval eishes chaver shenises li'am ha'aretz, but the wife of a chaver that marries an am ha'aretz, v'chein bito shel chaver shenises la'am ha'aretz, or the daughter of a chaver that marries an am ha'aretz, v'chein avdo shel chaver shenimkar li'am ha'aretz, or the servant of a chaver that gets sold to an am ha'aretz, einon tzrichim l'kabel divrei chavros l'chatchila, they don't need to accept the stringencies of being a chaver l'chatchila. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. But Rabbi Yehuda says, afein tzrichim l'kabel divrei chavros l'chatchila, no, they do need to accept upon themselves upon themselves the stringencies of being a chaver. And similarly, Rav Shimon ben Elazar says, there was an incident with one woman who married a chaver. She would tie his tefillin on his hand, but then when she married the tax collector, she would then be tying the tax receipts on his hand, meaning to say she became someone that was no longer trustworthy. And the Gemara continues on my Rav. Rav says, Chavis Asr. Chavis is a mnemonic. We'll see in a moment. That is Asr b'chosam echad. It's Asr if you just have one seal. And Champag, but the mnemonic Champag, that's Mutter b'chosam echad. That would be Mutter with one seal, as the Gemara will explain. And the Gemara says, what's the first mnemonic? Chavis refers to Cholav, which is milk, Basar, which is meat, Yayin, which is wine, and Tchelas, which is again the blue that you put on the threads of the tzitzis. And Rashi explains, Me'inshe Beise is Ishto, that refers to his wife. V'derech haram moim, those who were cheaters, limchor kala ilan b'shem tchelas. They would sell something called kala ilan, and they would say that it was tchelas. That's why it's a question whether you can trust that this is actually tchelas or not. And nafalta liyad, so then he said, nafalta liyad, you fall into my hand. Kalamar just means to say, achshav atatzarachli, now you need me to answer this question. I'll answer your question. And then the Gemara said, Shrichim lekabel divrei chavros, they need to accept upon themselves that which are the stringencies of a chaver, mitchila, from the beginning, kodem shu ne'emanin, before we're going to trust them, lechol divrei chavros, for all things that you trust a chaver for, sheyochlu b'tahara, v'sheyasru peiros, v'chayotze behen, that they're going to eat in purity, and they're taking off meiser, etc. Muchas stamagazlan, a muchas, a tax collector, generally we assume is a thief. Kishrei muchas, and so she was tying onto him the receipts of the muchas, chosamos, these are the seals, lenosne hameches, for those who give the tax, kedei shelo yitvam chaveirav umeshar sapam acheres. This way they won't come to collect from them again, because you have this receipt. And chavis again is a simanhu, that's a mnemonic for cholav, basar, yayin, and tchelas. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Beis.